It was meant to be just another wedding, nothing out of the ordinary. My husband, Philip, and I had been invited, though I barely knew the couple. I wasn't even close to them, and honestly, I went mostly for him. The hotel where the ceremony was held was beautiful, too beautiful. As we entered, I noticed the luxurious setting, and for a brief moment, I forgot about everything. Philip was caught up in conversation with people he knew, so I decided to step away for a moment. Little did I know, this decision would change everything. As I walked down the hallway towards the restroom, I overheard voices that caught my attention. They weren't just whispering, they were talking loudly enough for me to hear every word. I couldn't believe it when I realized they were talking about me. "Look at her. Why is she even here?" one voice said. I tried to ignore it, but their words pierced through me. "She's nothing more than a defect." The insults stung more than I wanted to admit. I couldn't let them see it, but the hurt was unmistakable. What did I do to deserve this? As I turned back to the restroom, I heard more insults, more cruel words meant to wound. I felt their eyes on me, burning into my skin, making me feel like I didn't belong. It was clear now, this wasn't just idle gossip. These people didn't know me, but they sure had no hesitation in making me feel worthless. The words were harsh, but what hurt more was the deliberate cruelty. "She doesn't belong here," someone muttered. My mind raced as I hurried to get away from them, not wanting to give them the satisfaction of seeing my distress. I tried to ignore them, but one of the voices called after me. "You can hear me, can't you?" it taunted. I picked up my pace, but I couldn't outrun the feeling of their judgment. Just as I thought I'd escaped, a hand grabbed my arm, spinning me around. The woman who had been shouting earlier looked furious, her grip tight and painful. She glared at me, and before I could react, she was yelling about how I didn't belong. I shook her hand off, not wanting to engage in her drama, but she staggered back, looking surprised by my resistance. "Who do you think you are?" she sneered. "You don't belong here. You're nothing but a failure." I froze. There was something about her voice that felt oddly familiar, like a ghost from my past. Then she said something that shook me to my core. "I'm your sister, Julia." My heart stopped. Could it be? Was this really happening? How could she be my sister? I hadn't seen or heard from her in years. She was the perfect child in the family, the one everyone adored. And I, the defective one, had been forgotten. What was she doing here? My mind was racing. This couldn't be real. After all these years, after everything that had happened, Julia was standing in front of me, accusing me of being a disgrace. My parents appeared soon after, just as shocked as I was, but their expressions didn't show concern. They acted like they had seen a ghost. Julia had always been the star in our family, and I had been the shadow. I had left home when I was young to escape their toxic favoritism. But now, standing here, I felt a sense of unease. Why was she here? And why now? Just as the tension was thickening, another voice interrupted. It was a man, Daniel. He stepped forward and addressed me. "Who are you?" he demanded. "What are you doing here?" His face was full of disbelief, but there was something in his eyes, an unsettling recognition. Before I could respond, he turned to my sister and asked, "Is this really your sister, Julia?" His voice carried a mix of confusion and curiosity. His disbelief only deepened when I told him my name. He wasn't just any guest. He was someone my sister had been keeping a secret. And I could feel it. The atmosphere became charged with more tension as Daniel's reaction shifted from confusion to disbelief. My mind raced again, trying to piece everything together. Who was he? And why did he look so familiar? Julia's face twisted in anger as she snapped at Daniel. "She doesn't belong here. She's a nobody." Her words were venomous, and my heart sank. The venom in her tone told me everything I needed to know. My family's rejection had always been personal, but now it seemed like they were trying to paint me as a threat. A threat to what? What had I missed all these years? As the tension continued to escalate, Daniel seemed to take the situation in stride, trying to calm everyone down. But my parents, looking even more uncomfortable now, began to speak. "She was a problem," my mother said. "We had no choice but to let her go. She was a nuisance to the family." The words felt like a punch to the gut. They hadn't changed. They were still the same people who had made my life miserable, who had used me and discarded me when I was no longer useful to them. But it wasn't just them. It was everyone. All of them. Suddenly, my mind flashed to memories I had long buried. Julia had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. I had been the afterthought, the one who wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, or good enough for my parents' approval. Julia had always been the star. But I had always been the one who worked hard, who fought for recognition. Her jealousy of my quiet accomplishments had grown over the years, and now, standing here, it all made sense. Julia had spent years resenting me, trying to tear me down at every chance. Now, I was finally seeing it. I took a step back, trying to keep my composure, but it was hard. The bitterness in my sister's eyes was unmistakable. She had spent years plotting against me, against my happiness. She had even gone so far as to manipulate our parents into believing I was the problem, the one who didn't belong. The truth was, my parents had chosen her over me long ago, and Julia had always been eager to remind me of my place. But now, I was no longer the helpless child I once was. I had built a life for myself, one they could never take away. As the confrontation continued, I felt a growing sense of relief that I had left that toxic world behind. My husband, Philip, had given me everything I needed to move on: love, security, and a fresh start. My life was mine now. But hearing the truth about what I had been through, about how my family had treated me, still stung. No matter how far I ran, my past had a way of catching up with me. And today, it seemed like my past had come crashing back, throwing my carefully constructed world into chaos. I had to confront it, but how? I realized something in that moment. I didn't need to prove anything to them anymore. My life was mine, and the mistakes of my past no longer had any hold over me. My family had made their choices, and so had I. As I stood there, looking at the people who had once been my family, I knew I was free. The realization hit me like a wave, and for the first time in years, I felt a deep sense of peace. The chaos around me didn't matter. I had everything I needed, except one thing. Something that had been left behind in the will. Just as I was about to leave, something caught my attention. Julia was talking to Daniel again, her voice now full of desperation. She was pleading with him, trying to justify everything that had happened. "You don't understand," she was saying. "She's always been a failure. She can't even hold down a real job." The lies were flowing, and I couldn't let them stand. "That's not true," I said, cutting her off. "I've built my life, and now it's time for the truth to come out." Everyone turned to me, shocked by my sudden confidence. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I wasn't the failure Julia had painted me as. In fact, the truth was the opposite. I had been to college, built a business, and found my own success. As I spoke, I saw the disbelief in their eyes, especially Julia's. She had always believed that she was the better one, the one who could do no wrong. But the truth was, she had failed in ways I couldn't even imagine. And now, it was time for her to face it. "You've lied about everything," I told her, my voice steady. "And now it's all coming to light." The revelation I made next shattered whatever was left of the image Julia had carefully crafted. I knew secrets she had tried to bury. Secrets about her failures, about her lies. And it was time for her to own up to them. I spoke without fear now, without hesitation. "You dropped out of school," I said, watching her face drain of color. "You've been lying about your qualifications and your job for years. You're not who you say you are, and everyone here deserves to know the truth." Her mouth opened in shock, but no words came out. This was it. The end of her charade. The shock on everyone's faces was palpable. My parents looked stunned, unsure of how to react. Daniel stood there, shaking his head in disbelief. But Julia? She was furious. Her face twisted with rage, and for a moment, I thought she might lash out. But instead, she turned to Daniel, her voice shaking. "You can't believe her. This is all lies." But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at her with a mix of disappointment and disgust. The cracks in their relationship were visible now, and I could feel the weight of it. The destruction of a family brought to light in one moment. As the tension hung in the air, a final twist came. It was in the will. When my husband and I left that day, I had no idea how much our lives were about to change. Julia, once the center of our family's attention, had no idea what I knew. And now I was about to reveal it all. The will Philip's father had left behind was about to change everything. Julia had been excluded, completely. I hadn't forgotten what had been done to me, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. This was my victory, and I would make sure it counted.